Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering. Here we have Jordan on Cephalid Breakfast versus Matt on 8cast. And he is going to shut down that Aether Vial as it could be a huge problem. Generating significant mana advantage, but also making things uncounterable. And most importantly, getting around Chalice of the Void. Force of Will, such a scary addition to this Chalice deck. Traditionally, Chalice decks not able to support Force of Will. Not particularly well. And we had a reader there as Urza's Bauble shows Step Through, a card that can Wizard Cycle. You'll get either Thassa's Oracle or Cephalid Illusionist. Great new printing for the deck. On 4 copies of it myself right now. Not sure if I'll end up trimming down. The combo is coming together pretty reliably, but it is a blue card to pitch the Force. Made room for that by cutting Mother of Runes and Limdul's Vault. It does seem to perform much better than Limdul's Vault. The Uncounterable Search is pretty fearsome when combined with Aether Vial and Cavern of Souls. A lot of what the deck does is uncounterable. Oh, casting Narcomoeba. That is not what you set out to do. Pretty gross. I mean, granted, with Chalice on 1, going to be very difficult to brainstorm those Narcomoebas back on top of the library. We have a Stoneforge Mystic, which may be able to grab Cauldron Complete or Batterskull. Could potentially steal this game right now. Things pretty well locked up. And Karn. Oh, it looks like he actually got Shuko. So Karn, the Great Creator. If Jordan doesn't have a living weapon in hand, either Batterskull or Shuko, or Cauldron Complete, I should say, is going to be very bad as Karn shuts off Shuko from functioning. Now, the nice thing about the Shuko interaction with Stoneforge is you can put it onto the battlefield, even though there's a Chalice at 1 out, but that Karn is actually a massive problem. Liquid Metal Coating, and he's going to start blowing up lands. Plussing Karn each turn. The noose is tightening. Jordan really needs a Cavern of Souls to cheat out Nomad in core, along with up. He's going to need that along with the Cephalid. He's got the Nomads, so he just needs a Cavern. It's going to get really complicated as far as like actual lines that could win. Or that Aether Vial could have helped out if it was able to activate a few times before Karn. Kind of the whole game right now. Jordan forgetting about Karn. Oh, and making a hasty attack here into a construct, throwing away that Stoneforge for no reason. Yes, the Narcomoeba is going to get in either way, but that Stoneforge died for absolutely nothing. Destroyed by a construct. See what Matt has. Grabbing a Bauble. Trying to keep the card draw flowing. Kind of has everything he needs. The ground is pretty well tied up. Oh, a Kappa Cannoneer. That's a clock as well. This Urza's Saga deck might be the best one. I mean, it's a really interesting card. I've talked about this before on the channel, but the symmetry between Magic cards is kind of a constant throughout history. Very rarely does that really get broken. For example, if you have Tarmogoyf and I have Tarmogoyf, they bounce off of each other. Both decks having that doesn't really provide an advantage to one or the other. There have been times to kind of leverage advantages in mirror matches, but that's a really interesting element of Urza Saga, is that the better Urza Saga deck is just at a massive advantage, whereas a Goyf holds off a Goyf. Your construct will not hold off my construct if I have twice as many artifacts as you, which is very much the case. Cephalid Breakfast could actually run Urza's Saga. The ability to tutor up Shuko is certainly not nothing. And of course, you can grab Aether Vial, sideboard Hate, possibly have an alternate path to victory with Retrofitter Foundry. I don't know if any of that stuff really justifies being the second best Urza's Saga deck at the table. If your opponent's Saga is just going to absolutely trample yours, it just seems like there's going to be a serious subset of games where you're kind of relying on Urza's Saga and it's not going to do what it needs to do because your opponent's Sagas are just that much better. So that's kind of an interesting element of the card. I really wouldn't want to be the second best Urza's Saga deck at the table, given just how badly that lines up. Because you want to have hands that you can really rely on having like a pair of Urza Sagas and just creating a crazy amount of constructs versus the deck that might end up with a hand that has a ton of counter magic. I mean, those type of hands can happen in tournament Magic. Your opponent's sitting there with like double Force of Will, feeling really good about being able to stop you from doing anything too broken, and instead you're just playing a bunch of very difficult to interact with cards. You know, those 0-drops do not feel good to Force of Will, nor is it really the right strategy, period. I mean, you really can't be stopping cards like Urza's Saga, Mishra's Bauble, Lotus Petal. Like, those are not cards that you're really going to trade resources for. Of course, if you can jam a Chalice at 0 against a deck like that, sure, but it's not really something that they're going to use counter magic against, and those Urza's Sagas end up being just essentially this uncounterable win condition, spitting out 5/5, 6/6s, 7/7s, just bigger and bigger, especially working well in multiples. Well, Matt's ahead here. Jordan did have to mull that last game, I believe, down to 5, but when your first spell to resolve is Narcomoeba, you're probably not going to be in fantastic shape. Looks like he's keeping 7 here. Ox Opal, Urza's Saga, Lotus Petal, all those 0-drops, and the Chalice. A Brainstorm in response, sees Step Through. Solid card for the most part here, assembling the combo, also shuffling the library, which can be very relevant after a Brainstorm. And it looks like we are probably going to see a Force of Will on this Chalice. Pitching Cephalid, he does have the Step Through to go find the other. I don't know if that's going to end up being optimal. The tempo loss there. I mean, Step Through is certainly a card that you can ditch. Looks like he actually does have another Cephalid in hand. That does make more sense. Emery. Just a brutal follow-up to any countered artifact. Yeah, she is devastating. I mean, just for 1 mana most of the time, because she has that affinity for artifacts. Being able to throw out something like a Kappa Cannoneer or a Chalice and just get her out there. And now we've got a Tormod script off of Urza's Saga. Going to stop the graveyard line. Jordan going to need to get Thassa's Oracle into hand in order to beat that, which is potentially doable, especially with Step Through being in the deck now. But the clock is ticking as constructs pose such a serious threat, and there's 2 more on the way just from this singular Urza's Saga. Stoneforge Mystic grabs a Shuko. See if this ends up being a valid line or if just missing just how severe the situation is. Pair of constructs. Shuko's not going to stop that. Only 2 mana. It's difficult to see what sequence could result. Jordan getting out the Cephalid and the Thassa's Oracle and that Shuko. Only 2 mana on board with how large these constructs are. I mean, just a comical amount of artifacts on board here. Yeah, down to 3. Jordan has 6 mana worth of necessity and a unblockable Kappa most likely next turn. I mean, definitely, because he can, of course, recur something with Emery. And there's the handshake. Cephalid Breakfast gets taken out by the new kid on the block here. 8 cast. And Chalice and Force of Will. What a dangerous combination versus combo decks. Probably versus the field.